I pledge allegiance to the flag
Allegiance
of the
to the flag
United States of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands,
One nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
individual,
liberty.
with liberty
Liberty.
and justice for all.
Oski thanks you.
Amen.
Amen.
Chag
Okay.
Sameach.
Yeah, there you go.
This is Julia, the clerk of the board. Just a quick note for online meetings. If it's possible, please either mute yourself if you're on the meeting via your computer, or mute your phone when you're not speaking. I know that may cause a bit of confusion when you start speaking and you forget to unmute yourself, but it really is helpful for the audio when there is one or as limited people speaking at a time as possible. Thank you very much.
So do I have an approval of the agenda? Do we have to move anything around? Steve?
We have Eric Stromberg joining us, which is item number 10. So I leave it to your judgment to potentially move him up relative to the other items.
So I would like to think that we should move number 10 right after the consent calendar.
I move to adopt the agenda and be flexible on item 10.
Okay.
second,
All in favor? Well, we have to do a roll call technically.
Okay. Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly. Director Kelly, your vote.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Megs,
Yes.
Scylla,
yes,
and Borstein.
Yes, please.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay. Now, item 3 is we have open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Anyone wishing to address the board of directors on matters within the district's jurisdiction but not on the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The board may not take any action or discuss items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements or questions by a member of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up or elect to have the matter placed on an agenda for a future meeting. So I could say raise your hand, but I suspect we probably have one person here who would like to make a statement.
Yes, that's I, Molly Cummings.
Okay.
So thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak with you. I am a 17-year resident of Fairfax. I'm a single mother and I am a hardworking person who has currently been not able to work. I run a hair salon in San Rafael and my work has been abolished for the moment. I had a situation with my me wanting to needing to fix my sewer lateral line in the event that I was going to possibly sell my property and or add on a smaller unit for someone to rent eventually. And about 3 weeks prior to the work being done, all of my plumbing backed up and I was not able to live in my home for about 5 days. So when that happened, it didn't allow me time to be able to fill out the grant application, since I work about 9 hours a day prior to this not being able to work. So, and then the COVID happened and it's just like I'm trying to climb out of a hole basically. So I know it's an exception. I'd spoken with Felicia Larry Bragman is a client of mine and a friend, and he encouraged me to speak with Pamela Meggs, which we have been emailing. And then yesterday I emailed everyone a copy of the photos and the letter that I presented. I know it's an exception and it's not the rule, but for a hardworking single mom, it's jumping through a lot of hoops to get this stuff done. And I'm just hoping that maybe there'll be an exception and there'll be a little bit of some grant money there for me to take advantage of, since I didn't have the opportunity, being that all the plumbing backed up and it didn't allow me enough time to do the paperwork. Thank you.
Maybe.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, Tom, please.
Yes.
Well, so the reason you didn't qualify for a grant is because you didn't file the paperwork on time? Is that the only reason?
I didn't file the paperwork on time because the plumbing had backed up and it had to expedite the process because I wasn't able to live in my home. The bathtubs and all the toilets had completely backed up, so I was living. I'm sorry?
But I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with your application. Maybe Felicia, Steve, could you help me with this?
No,
she's had a problem. We understand that.
I didn't fill out an application because the work had to be done prior to me being able to complete an application.
So I think I can answer Tom's question. The district requires that applications be received prior to the work being completed, or actually they have to be approved prior to the work being completed. And I believe in this particular case, we didn't receive an application at all. Normally, we do expedite approvals for emergency situations because we do understand that sometimes these things happen, and we like to be as accommodating as we can for those unforeseen events. But unfortunately, in this case, we just didn't ever receive an application, and the work was done without us having even received an application. And it's very clear, at least in the grant process, that the application has to be approved prior to the work being completed. We do have an opening for Ms. Cummings if she's interested in the loan program. She is eligible to retroactively apply for that.
You know, the way I feel about it is maybe we ought to put an emergency clause in our ordinance there that we could discuss at a future board meeting.
Yeah, so as a reminder, this is public comment, and so the board can't deliberate or make any decisions about it, so maybe it should come onto a future agenda.
Okay.
Well, I think
Well, I'd like it to come on a future agenda.
Hi, sorry, I got dropped out.
I think it would be appropriate for us to consider this on the next agenda, because technically we are not allowed to discuss anything tonight because of the way the law is written. But Tom suggested that we have it on a future agenda, and I think we should consider that. So,
Doug, I would agree with that.
So,
if she got the loan and it then that means that she would get cash in hand. Explain to me the loan. What impact would it be? Would her having her apply for the loan be as opposed to an exception to the grant program?
I have a point of order. I don't. Can we keep talking about this? I mean,
we can't. Okay.
Should we wait?
I think the point of clarification is fine, but then we should move on.
All right.
Cool.
Excuse me, I got dropped out of the meeting, but what I'd like to clarify is my intention was to apply for the grant money, but my plumbing had backed up, so I was not able to live in my house for about a week. So therefore, I had to expedite this work, and I didn't have time, and I worked 10-hour days, Monday through Saturday. So, and I'm a single mother, and I was not able to navigate the situation very well. And I know there are certain guidelines, and my intention was to do it. But when the plumbing backed up, I had no choice but to proceed with the work prior to being able to apply for the grant.
Molly, this is Michael again. Listen,
Hi, Michael.
Here's the deal.
Yes.
What we've all sort of discussed, maybe when you dropped out for a second, is we really can't delve into it tonight, but we've all agreed that we would like to see it on the next agenda as an action item to see what we can do. But legally, we're not allowed to tonight.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
But thank you for coming to us. It's always enjoyable to have the public appear.
This is a first.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm the only public person appearing. And it's a miracle that I was able to do this because I'm not very savvy with technology.
Okay.
But this is our new world, I guess, for a while.
If we thank you for showing up here, Molly, and if we can continue, oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong agenda here. Committees report out.
Can we let Molly know when is our next meeting? Do we know next month?
Yeah, I'm sure it says it in the
next regular board meeting is May 20th.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, committees report out. HR committee.
The HR committee met on Monday. That was me and Michael, and we discussed agenda item 8 on the agenda this evening that pertains to a reclassification of a position as a result of sort of a needs assessment done by Steve of the engineering needs of the organization at this point, and we'll talk more about that later on this agenda. But that was our main item of discussion, and just understanding the dynamics around that and the impact that it will have on the budget and the organization as a whole and number of FTEs, et cetera. But it seems to make a lot of sense and to be a dynamic response to changes in our existing staff, and then actually remaining flexible going forward to be sure we can recruit the best folks, and then what we actually, based on our needs rather than formalistic ideas of job descriptions. Michael, did you want to add anything?
That's exactly what we did, and we'll be discussing it tonight. But it seems like that, not for the first time, but this is a progression over the past 6 years of turning this agency into one that was designed instead of inherited. And I think it's lovely. So, Tom, can you discuss the finance committee?
Yeah, the Finance Committee met yesterday. We discussed a number of the consent calendar items, including the finances and the change orders. It looks like we're moving along to file a notice of completion for the fiscal year 16-17 gravity sewer rehab projects, which is, I think there's 9 miles of projects on that one. And then we also reviewed a couple of new one new charter and a new project to clear up the pipeline in the Ross Creek. And so, and then we also looked at the need for the new engineering staff. Michael, anything to add?
No, we're going to go, we went over all the different projects, and I think we've got some real milestones that are happening. I think, Steve, how many miles are we qualifying to have accomplished now? I think it was either 9 or 11 or something like that we're closing the books on.
On that project, approximately 9. I'll need to look it up, but in our summary, we did take credit for it in our summary of the regional board because it was substantively complete last summer, and the final completion on the lining was in October.
Yeah.
But it's right now our repair is about 29 miles and our capital work is around 25 miles. So this was 9 miles of the 25. It was a huge amount of capital work.
That's great. And we'll go over all of it tonight, but everything, we didn't really have any questions, and the financials all look strong. So Central Marin, Doug?
I'm ready.
Go for it.
Well, we looked at the annual OPEB funding plan update, which we do once a year there. I think here, Ross Valley, we decided to do it twice a year, but at any rate, because of the recent stock changes, we're down about $144,000 from where we thought we would be. But the board recommended take no action, as we feel like this is a temporary situation. It could improve, it could get worse, we don't know. But right now, we didn't want to, we didn't want to do anything rash.
Rock the boat.
Pardon me?
I just said you don't want to rock the boat.
Yep, that's exactly right. We signed a new San Quentin wastewater service agreement. That included the hire of 3 employees who clean their traps. If you remember, we used to have a lower level prisoner do that. The last one that worked for Central Marin absconded, carjacked a car, and drove away. So San Quentin is now allowing us, Central Marin hired 3 part-time employees. They will do the work, and then when they're not there, they'll be working at Central Marin, and San Quentin's paying for them. So it's all good. In fact, San Quentin's buying a truck. One of their investments will be in a truck, which will be the truck the employees use to drive back and forth. We changed some of the authorities. Some of the things that the general manager was authorized to do on purchases and orders of certain supplies, especially in emergencies, he wasn't actually authorized to. And I think for many years they thought they were. So there were very minor technical changes, but we put them down on the paper. And so that was about what we did. That was Central Marin.
A little bit, we spent some time talking about the emergency procedures that they've got in place. And, we're doing this same kinds of issues that we are also. So it's all, I think they're on top of it. Any verbal reports by board members and requests for future items?
I'm sorry, President Borstein, I believe, oh no, sorry, my mistake, never mind.
I have North Bay Watershed did not meet, but they will meet on May 1st. And I believe Judy Kelly is resigning, which is sad. But that's
after next September.
Right, she'll be in there to help lead the way for the next person. So that's all I have.
Anybody else? Hey, Julia, if I were to real quick send you a picture, can you put it up for people to see? This is so high tech.
Mike, why don't you just hold it in front of your camera? Because that's all Julia would do.
Wait a minute. Michael.
Okay.
To my telephone,
is this necessary and appropriate?
You're making me nervous, Michael.
No, I'm not. No. Hang on. This is all district stuff. I was very excited the other day when I was out riding my bicycle and I rode past pump station 15
Okay, let me go get my phone.
No, here it is. Here it is. Don't worry. This is at pump station 15. And there's a, whoops, where it is. There's a very large banner, which is about don't flush your wipes, as part of our public outreach. And
yeah, that's great. I can see it. That's right outside of pump station
15.
Yeah.
Right on the bike path. And the cool thing about that was that, like, these kids were totally into the cartoons, and that father was discussing about you can't flush your toys and the fish down the toilet. So anyway, good work to public outreach people here. We're getting the message out. I actually heard a big thing on KCBS, same thing today. So good for that.
I think you can flush the fish though.
Steve, are we allowed to flush fish? No fish. If it's not toilet paper, it's not going. Anyway.
Fish aren't going to make it to the ocean, unlike Finding Nemo. Yeah. That was a flaw in that Pixar production.
Okay. Any other board members? Okay. Then let's go into the consent calendar. Matters listed under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. The consent calendar may include resolutions. Therefore, the motion, second, and vote will also be applicable to the resolutions and recorded accordingly. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the board or the public prior to the time the board votes on the motion to adopt. So first board.
I'm sorry, President Borstein.
Yes.
This is Julia. Would you like the general manager's report, which is item 6, after this item? It's technically item 6 that was.
I'm sorry, I apologize, Steve. Let's go do that, and then I will have already. Thank you.
Oh, okay. It's okay with me. I'll be brief here. Here in April 2020, we advertised for the open position of assistant or associate engineer, and applications were due on April 19th. We received 20 applications and have gone through those applications in detail and have selected 8 candidates to be interviewed for this open position of assistant or associate engineer. And those interviews are slated for next week.
Will the interviews have to be done via Zoom, or will they be in person, or?
Yeah, they will not be in person.
Interesting.
And second, there was another county health order on April 17th. It mandates the wearing of masks in common office areas and public areas. So all employees now wear masks at work. I've got mine here, ready to go if I need it. For the common areas. In your office, it's okay not to have a mask. So, and all of our workers wear masks now, as of today, on Earth Day. Third, the Laurel Grove Sewer Project, which is on the agenda for construction management services. We're finalizing design, and the notice inviting bids will be issued in the next few days. We're working on the CEQA, or environmental review of that project, and we've initiated formal consultation with the Native American tribe, the Great Rancheria, and that's going well. Fourth, Larkspur Landing cleanup. I know folks have inquired about that to me just directly. The cleanup is about, depending on how you measure it, it's about 2/3 done. There's deep excavation that still remains to be done that's very technical. And it's planned to be restarted in the coming weeks. We have the encroachment permit from the city of Larkspur, and we will coordinate and respond to any COVID-19 related directives at the site. We'll postpone work if necessary. The contractor, ERRG, has developed a COVID-19 exposure control plan like we had done and our other contractors have done. So at this point, we're still planning for reinitiating of that work, but we're maintaining flexibility if there are any directives about that kind of construction and whether it's essential or what the definitions of what's essential will be in 3 weeks. We don't know. So we're being flexible. Finally, I'd like to touch on something President Borstein mentioned was the outreach efforts. Yes, we've put banners up at the pump station, the Kentfield, Larkspur, and the Greenbrae pump stations. And it looks like they're being viewed favorably by the public, used as teachable moments for parents for their kids about what not to put in the toilet. We have also, and Stephen Mixis, our O&M manager, has been coordinating with our vendor, Gold Street, to develop products, including masks, by the way, buffs, bandanas with Ross Valley on them. That's part of what we're up to. Also, there's messaging on the bandanas. So we have magnet signs on all the vehicles which say practice social distancing, stay 6 feet back, and they're very readable from a distance. We also have these placards that we put on top of traffic cones so that when pedestrian and bicycle traffic, which is heavier now than it used to be, when they come near our operations, they're reminded to give us 6 feet clearance. Other operation managers have seen our products and want to know where they can get theirs. I think the police department said they wanted some. And Mixis, why don't you go ahead and weigh in at this point?
So we used a bunch of old traffic control signs, and we basically used Velcro and tied on to new social distancing. Please stay 6 feet away from the vehicle and the operator. So we're in constant, it's constantly telling the public, please, we're here to provide public health and safety. Let us do our job. Stay away from us, and we'll get in and get out. So we're trying to minimize our exposure at each location that we actually have to clean from. And we've gotten a lot of compliments from the public.
Great, and then along these lines, a month ago we were working on and finalizing that coronavirus TV commercial for what not to flush, including all the wipes you're using to clean surfaces in your homes and that sort of thing. Our original work there is being copied by sanitary districts throughout the state. So I know Modesto picked it up, and Gold Street is giving some business with that project that we developed. And then on outreach, we're updating our capital project information for the website because there's a lot of turnover. Last month we had 3 notices of completion. We're getting a lot of work done. And this month we have a proposed notice of completion. And so our capital map needs to be reconfigured to include Laurel Grove, force main appurtenances, the Larkspur Landing cleanup, and some other projects. So we're working on that. And it was interesting because in looking at the base map, one thing I had to do is remove that little hole we have in the lower left corner for Murray Park, because that's no longer relevant. So we're redoing our maps to eliminate that exception area of our district, because as of July 1st, functionally, Murray Park is in the district. And that's all I have for my report.
Michael, I had a question. Michael, I have a question. Steve, I wanted to know, who are you interviewing? 4 assistant engineers and 4 associate engineers, or are you just?
Well, it's one position, and we're going to select the candidate we feel is the best fit for the organization, and it may be a person that qualifies for the assistant position or the associate. We haven't decided yet, and we're going to go through the interview process. We've reviewed the applications, and there is a spectrum of qualified candidates that go from assistant to associate.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else, let's move on to the consent calendar.
Michael, sorry, I forget about the button. I just have a couple of quick questions. Is that right?
Okay.
One is about San Quentin Village, and I know we've kind of been in and out of this. Is there any talk, anything about moving ahead with annexing San Quentin Village you know about?
Thanks for asking, Director Meggs. LAFCO has been encouraging us to consider this. The county is encouraging us to consider this. And we had a meeting, and I can't tell you the exact date off the top of my head, but it was late February, I think, or first week of March, where we met with LAFCO and the county. There is a special district there at San Quentin Village. It's a dependent special district. So it's really a county sewer maintenance district, not an independent special district like us.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it's the last one. You know, Murray Park and San Quentin Village were the two last county sewer maintenance districts. Now Murray Park is going away. And frankly, the county doesn't want to be in the sewer maintenance business. And they're asking us to look at it. We, in our due diligence, engaged San Rafael Sanitation District, because they're also adjacent to San Quentin, to see if they would be interested. We talked to CMSA, and I think we've come to the conclusion that we're probably the best fit, even though it's not directly adjacent to our district. There's a leapfrog, or it's an island beyond the Department of Corrections sewer system at San Quentin Prison. So it's not the greatest fit, but at the same time, when you look at the actual work that needs to get done, everyone involved feels that we would probably be the best entity to take over governance of the operation and maintenance. And I'm trying to think, 25 laterals or something like that. So it's like a third or a fourth the size of Murray Park. And there's one lift station that connects it through the prison to the force main system to CMSA. The type of work that's done there, CMSA oversees a lot of it, and they have Roy's or Roto-Rooter maintain it. So I realize I'm getting a lot of detail, but we've gone through those details and come to the conclusion that something we could absorb in terms of our maintenance work, and it's okay with our partners to do so. So we're going to continue along the path as we had done with Murray Park to make sure the county wraps up its agreements with Department of Corrections and Caltrans, which they're working on, and then we can come up with a strategy for handing it off. It might not be as complicated as we thought going in, and we'll keep you updated.
Great, thank you. And then quickly, Comcast, anything new and exciting?
Yes, I'll go. I'll provide a little update, but we could also, others here could chime in. We're still negotiating on the lease, but we've come to agreement on the configuration of the entryway. And so we also we received some information from Comcast about the justification for the improvements they want to have done on the first floor. So we have a better sense that we have something we can point to say this is what justifies these changes on the first floor. That's helpful. And also we've received the strong input. Well, let's see. Comcast wants us to have one contractor that does both our second floor improvements and the first floor improvements that they would lease, right? Not two different contractors. So we're having Albert, our architect, come up with a design for both floors. And we're gonna estimate the cost and include that in this year's coming budget. And we're still not at the point of signing the lease, but we believe we're very close.
Okay, yeah, it's been a year, I think. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Anybody else? If not, let's move ahead to the consent calendar. Do we have any of our board members who would like to pull anything off the consent calendar?
I have one question. I'm the troublemaker.
Which one?
F,
Okay, we'll pull F.
7F, that's it.
Okay, Steve, you want to go ahead and talk about F, and maybe we'll clear up the question and vote as the
Well, I can be really specific. It's not the whole thing. But
Sure.
I'm just wondering if I should talk with Steve or Felicia at another date. I couldn't follow the bid item number 38 on page 3 of 7. I got lost in all these changes and transferring and additions and redesign and segregating funding, and I just got totally lost. I not really able to follow it. So maybe unless I'm going to vote for it, but I don't really feel really good about that section. I'm not clear how all these things got kind of like, I was on the yellow brick road and then I sort of fell off. So it's just those areas of the report.
Very good. That's a perfectly legitimate question. You know, it feels like something was moved from one area to another, and there's not a lot of easy, there isn't language that on that specific task points you very clearly to the rationale. So I think it's a reasonable question. What happened and you're talking about bid item 38, which was the Woodside easement. And originally it was bid item number 19, which is the certain construction that was proposed, but it was determined to be impossible to do. I think it was a really large tree with roots and we couldn't just pipe burst through it. We had to reroute the sewer. We had to dig things up. We had some bad fortune with the water main getting broken and entering the trench, and we had to split the costs with the contractor. And so because we changed the scope, we moved it into a different bid item. And so we get a credit on the one bid item, and then we get a cost on the other. And, and there was a proposed price for the other, which was $369. It ended up being $376. So there was a little bit of an overage, but it was based on unit costs. So we thought a certain length was needed and it needed to be a greater length. So we got the same contract price, but more pipe than we predicted. That's one example why you get a small change like that. And it's understood in construction that the precise length of pipe isn't always known. And as long as you have a unit cost, it's reasonable, and it goes both ways. So that's the story behind this bid item 19 to 38 was they had to kind of wipe it off and start with a clean slate with a different sewer change, and it warranted just reconstituting it. But there was a credit of $400,000 and then a cost of $376,000. So amazingly, it actually was a net credit to the project. But this was very complex that way, and I will never discourage board members from looking into details. But you'll see when projects are structured this way with 37 different segments, it gets really hard to track, Yeah. And going forward, we're not going to have projects of this magnitude or this complexity.
Is this the old project? What year is this?
Yeah, 16, 17. And, as I piece together the history, this was a huge agglomeration of commitments, and it was in good faith trying to respond to the cease and desist order. It ended up being fragmented. So even though this seems really large and unwieldy at a $10 million level with 9 miles and all these different little segments on blocks, city blocks throughout our district, it was part of a bigger project. It was 1617, and it included all that work in San Anselmo on Butterfield.
Yeah, now I remember
right?
now. Yeah, I remember some of this.
And then there was a place where we split it into 2 projects: gravity rehabilitation, which was this one, and gravity improvements, which was the Butterfield, Nokomis up through Meadowcroft, and that was supposed to be 1 section, but it turned into 3. And we still have the 3rd section, Arroyo de Kenrick, that is slated for next summer. So it kind of boggles the mind a little bit about how massive the original project was, because it's been broken down into parts that were in themselves pretty large, and including this one.
Okay.
Now you can take a deep breath and look back and say, wow, that's what it took to do 25 miles, which is 10% of the whole system.
Yeah, I think this was part of the IAMP too, if I remember right. Right.
That's right.
Okay, now it'll. And by the way, if I'm looking away, it's because I have a big screen to the right. Otherwise, I can't see you all. So that's why I'm looking out there. Okay, thank you.
No, thanks for the question. And actually, I appreciate board members taking this one off to discuss a little bit. As you can tell, it's an accomplishment for the organization that we've reached this point, because it was a pipe burst in close quarters. You can see the names of these places like Allen and Redwood in Director Kelly's neighborhood, Scenic and Floribel. These were difficult places to work where the road is almost too narrow for 1 lane of traffic. So actually getting sewer replacements in these areas is very challenging.
General Manager, that's absolutely right. I live on Floribel. Allen's really right across the street because it's Serpentine. And the work was done very well in a very, very difficult environment.
All right. Yeah. Awesome.
And then finally, I do have to point out that these, the add-ons were notable, the 39 and 40, since I have the microphone, for item 39 on page 3 of 7, Richmond and Bolinas roads, that was an opportunity we seized to assist towns of San Anselmo and town of Ross with a storm drain project there. We added this reroute of a sewer to complement that work. And it was a good bid price, unit price that Ranger Pipelines, the contractor, made available for this add-on work that assisted with the towns needing us to move sewers out of the way. And then number 40, you might remember about 1 year ago, you approved this 839,000 change order, quite sizable. That's the size of a regular old project, right? But on this scope, because again, the contractor had a good bid price, we asked them a request for quote, and they came in a reasonable budget, and you approved that change order at that time, and we were able to get that work done in a narrow window between paving projects that the town in San Anselmo was doing around Miracle Mile, Red Hill. So that was great to be able to get that in, because that was a cease and desist order IAMP project that was on a deadline last year to get completed. So that was an accomplishment of many in this project.
Okay. Well, I wonder if we can have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Doug Kelly, so move.
Second.
Okay.
Tom Gaffney, second.
Too late, Tom. The delay cost you the second. Okay, Julia, roll call.
Okay, shall we vote? Gaffney,
Yes.
What's your vote? Great.
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Megs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes, please.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move number 10 to do next. So this is a consideration of approving and authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of council to approve consultant services agreement with Restoration Design Group, Inc., RDG, for $109,507 for design permitting, grant application, regulatory reporting, and construction documentation services for Ross Creek Sewer Removal Project, project number 944. And this is very cool that we're doing this. So Steve.
Great. The large diameter gravity sewer project along Shady Lane included replacing a part of a trunk sewer with a siphon under Ross Creek. This original trunk sewer, which serves the communities upstream San Anselmo and Fairfax, and it goes through Ross on its way to the pump station 15, was originally placed around 1926. So it's almost 100 years old. And from Shady Lane, it's noticeable, it's viewable as a large, it looks like a dam. It's like a concrete cylinder, concrete encased sewer pipe. We were not required to remove the sewer pipe as part of our permit to put the siphon under the creek that we obtained from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. During the permit process, it was brought up that maybe it would be a good idea to remove it, but we tabled that idea. And now we recognize the community would like to see something more natural there. We also recognize that our sewers in many settings can be grade control structures or impediments to fish migration sometimes, or just aquatic habitat connectivity and maybe hydraulic impediments. And so we wanted to explore the feasibility of removing the sewer, but do so carefully, because when you take something out, you can have unintended consequences in a dynamic stream system. The Restoration Design Group was recommended to us as we were asking around for qualified consultants about a year ago to do a geomorphic analysis of removing the sewer. And they provided the answer that it was feasible. They have a conceptual design, and which we've shared with the town of Ross and the flood control district. And I'm recommending to the board that we award this design contract to Restoration Design Group. And I invited Eric Stromberg of RDG to be available here to answer any questions, and maybe you could give the board just a brief overview of what you see in the work ahead. It's planned to be removed in the summer of 2021, so not this year, but do all the planning and design and coordination with the community and be ready to go the following summer. Eric?
Yeah, hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Do I sound all right? Okay, great. So yeah, it is an interesting little project, and going into it, there were some concerns. Sometimes they get challenging when removing a structure in the stream because it has downstream and upstream consequences, hydraulically, number one, and geomorphically, and how sediment is moved. So our first assessment that we did last year in the fall was to look at the channel all the way from the confluence of Corte Madera Creek upstream. And we looked at the channel profile and the overall stability of the creek to make sure that whatever we're going to propose to do in this one section, removing this sewer, that it's not going to have, as Steve said, unintended consequences either up or upstream. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised that the channel profile is in good condition and supportive of simply removing the sewer line. In fact, it almost could be a very simple project, removing the sewer line and more or less walking away if it wasn't for upstream constriction immediately there. So if anyone's been there to Lane and looked upstream, you can see the sewer line that's exposed in the channel. And it's about a 3-foot drop over the sewer line that's acting like a weir currently today. And just upstream of that, though, the private property owners, which is very common in our urban streams, especially up and downstream of Ross Valley, there's walls that are really constricting the channel. And that just what those walls are doing hydraulically has a pretty profound impact on the channel, and does impact what we are proposing to do once that sewer line is removed. And so I kind of mentioned that if those walls weren't there, we almost could just remove the sewer line, move the bed gravels, the gravels within the bed around, and have a fully restored stream. Maybe do some revegetation. But because we have that upstream constriction, we're worried about any down cutting that might happen upstream. So the concrete you have now is acting as a weir and a grade control. And so we want to replace the functionality of a grade control so the channel bed doesn't degrade further and impact the upstream walls. And our analysis showed that we can do that with basically building what's called a constructed riffle. And I can get into the details probably more than you want to hear maybe tonight. But that's what our concept is showing, is restoring the bed with a more coarse material than what's there today, but it's still functionally appropriate for the site in a geomorphic context. It should look a lot more natural, provides good fish passage. Right now, it's a barrier to juvenile salmonids. The adults, when there's good flow, they can make that jump theoretically, and I think there's fish upstream with steelhead that do make it. But the fisheries biologists we've talked to, the existing condition is not passable for juvenile salmonids that will be rearing in that stream. So there is a habitat benefit too, as in addition to aesthetics. So our process now, we're at concept level. This contract takes us all the way through design, engineering, and then we'll play a role in construction oversight to make sure that the technical aspects of the stream project is implemented per design. And then probably when you're doing work in the streams, you need to have regulatory agency approval from Army Corps, Water Board, Department of Fish and Wildlife. One of the requirements of those permits is to do usually about 5 years of monitoring of the stream to make sure that whatever we said we were going to do within the stream is actually performing as we said. That's just typical. So our contract, we've also put in the time and effort to do what we expect to do for that maintenance and monitoring plan for that aspect. So our contract is not just to go through design, but it's actually to go for a number of years, potentially 5 years after construction is done to prepare these reports.
And since you live in San Anselmo, you can probably handle that, being around to keep an eye on this stream in 5 years.
Yeah, actually, I live in, I'm on the San Anselmo Flood Committee, but I live in Fairfax.
That's it.
So
right,
yeah.
Fairfax. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Just teasing.
Yeah.
Exactly is this? Where does it, I mean, I grew up biking up and down Shady Lane and crossing those little bridges. Is this closer to Kentfield or closer to San Anselmo?
Other direction.
Closer to San Anselmo.
Down near the church. A few blocks before the church.
Okay. It's that little narrow bridge.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, Locust.
Next time you go across that bridge and then look upstream towards the reservoir, and you'll see right below, you'll see your beautiful sewer line that's now abandoned.
Okay, so quick question. Has the Army Corps already done all its looking and probing and all that on this project?
No, so part of our contract will be to prepare the permits for that. So there'll be an Army Corps permit and a Water Board permit and a Fish and Wildlife permit.
Okay, but they are agreeing with what you have now, correct? What you're proposing now?
Yes, I mean, well, technically they haven't, as far as I know, they haven't, unless Steve has taken them to the meetings in the past. I don't know if they've seen this, but I'm personally not concerned about that. This is the type of project they would like to see. It's removing an obstruction, something unnatural, and it's feasible what we're proposing.
Because sometimes they overdo everything, you know, they do. They get. I've seen really small projects like this go to really huge, horrible dechannelizing and all kind. Okay, that's good to hear. You were just doing the consulting on this, right? That's all you're not actually doing the construction, right? You're just doing the consulting.
Correct. Yeah, I'm a landscape architect. We have a civil engineer on staff, and the two of us will be leading this project for the design phase. this would go to bid and be built by a contractor.
Okay, so Steve, my question then is, this bid is not for the hands-on construction yet, right?
Correct. We would go
What-
out to bid about a year from now, maybe
Okay,
a little
and
before that. Yeah.
what do you think it might cost?
Eric has looked at a range of potential costs. From going from memory, I think it was between $125,000 and $290,000, just depending on a host of factors. So what's interesting, and I did note it in the report, is the consulting services are a higher percentage of the construction estimate in this type of a project because of the complexity of the regulatory reporting and permitting,
Right.
and the need for oversight. We're not going to need additional construction management like we would with a sewer project, because this is really a point project where RDG can provide the expertise to guide the contractor to making sure they have the right rocks that they're selecting. They can assist us to make sure that's happening. So we will be getting a construction documentation, working with them, because they have the specialty knowledge about how to rebuild a creek, that our low bid contractors don't necessarily know.
And
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, and then Eric didn't mention it and I forgot to, but we also have a budget for them to pursue grants.
That was my next.
Pursue funding because, and he corroborated with the fisheries biologist to confirm we could go to someone like Coastal Conservancy and say, hey, help us out here because we're going to improve fish passage for juvenile salmonids trying to get out to the ocean, that they're held back by this structure, and also, we may not have flood benefits that some of these things would create because of those constricted walls he talked about, but it looks like we might have this fisheries benefit, and we'll try to get funding to help offset these costs.
Great, thank you.
Any other directors? I think it's a great project.
Yeah, I fully support this. I'm glad we looked at this about a year ago, didn't we? And I think we were pretty much in favor of doing it at the time.
So do we have a motion?
We have it in our business plan.
That's why you saw it. We did the business plan.
So do we have a motion?
Here.
I move we authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute a consultant services agreement with RDG for design, permitting, grant application, regulatory reporting, and construction documentation services for Ross Creek Sewer Removal Project number 944 and an amount not to exceed $109,507.
Second.
Julia, roll call.
All right, Gaffney,
Yes.
yes. Great. Kelly,
Yes.
Megs,
Yes.
Villa,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Eric.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I
Thanks,
appreciate
Eric.
it. Yep. Bye.
Okay, agenda item number 8, consideration of reclassifying engineering technician position to assistant/associate engineer in fiscal year 2019/20, budget position allocation, and discuss recommendations for fiscal year 2020/21 budget position allocations.
Thank you. Assistant General Manager Newhouse, would you be interested in introducing the item?
Yes, I'd be happy to. General Manager Moore. This comes to the Board of Directors to consider a modification of the current fiscal year budget, specifically Schedule 6, which includes position allocation and is an attachment of the staff report. Let's see, attachment C. And as I discussed with the Finance Committee and the HR Committee over the past couple of days, this particular schedule is adopted every year as part of the annual budget. And I'd like to just walk through it one more time because I think it's an important document that the board's familiar with. It identifies the total number of full-time positions in the organization as 35. And then it identifies each of the classifications, also known as job descriptions, in the organization, and the number of positions that hold that particular job classification or job description. So for example, and we have 3 different departments that we typically categorize our budget into: administration, operations, and what we formerly called the capital assets program, which is now simply engineering. So for example, in operations, and if you're looking at attachment C to the staff report, you'll see, for example, that there are 4 operations supervisors. That particular classification in the 3rd column is noted under full-time positions, and there's no change. Generally, year to year, we've been pretty consistent since, I think, about 2017. We went from 38 full-time positions to 35 full-time positions, and we've maintained that number of full-time positions since then. And the recommendation is to continue to maintain that number of positions, although we do have some vacancies now, as the board's aware. The technical services manager position is vacant. The senior engineer position is vacant. The engineering technician position is vacant. And the inspection superintendent position is vacant. So the general manager, with the assistance of other executive management, has been really looking at how to best fill those positions, and it might not be specifically using those exact classifications again. So in this particular case, we're looking at the engineering technician classification and making a recommendation to the board to reclassify that position to an assistant associate engineer position, and that's what's before the board this evening. The district did open the recruitment already, as Steve mentioned in his general manager's report. You'll see the job flyer, which is attachment B. It looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. I don't know if the district has had, or the board has seen any of the recruitment flyers that the district has done in the past, but I think this is the first one that of its kind that has the same look and feel as the other district communication pieces, the website, the flyers that go out, and other again, public outreach notifications that the district has. So this is, as Michael Borstein, President Borstein, was mentioning earlier, a really nice feature of where the district has landed in terms of its evolution over the past few years. So the district's gone out to recruit for this particular position, but we will not be able to fill it without the board's authorization to reclassify the engineering technician position to an assistant associate position. There is a change in salary for that particular position. It's noted in the staff report. The engineering technician position was making probably $1,000 or $3,000 less a month than the assistant associate engineer position. However, given the other vacancies in the organization, the overall salary and benefits will be at or under budget for certainly for this year, and possibly, and we'll revisit it again for next year. The second part of the staff report addresses the budget for next fiscal year and the position allocations that the board may see in the draft budget in May. There are going to be some additional suggestions as to how to reclassify specifically the engineering and inspections department. One of the recommendations is to add a compliance officer. The district has identified, I&I, areas of I&I that we could use a little extra attention, as well as other lateral compliance issues. So we think a compliance officer, there's environmental regulations, and I think Steve can probably talk more about that, where we feel that a compliance officer would be a big added benefit to someone in the team of the district. And then a deputy O&M manager is also being recommended for the next fiscal year budget. No increase in staff is being recommended. We're just looking at the existing openings and how we may reclassify those positions to meet the current needs of the district. So Steve, I'm gonna pass it back to you and ask if you'd like to add anything to that description.
Great, you covered basically everything. I think I would note that we had an item in February, and so this is in April is the next step. And back in February, next step, and then May we'll have a proposed budget, and the proposed position changes in that table for this coming budget, which Felicia noted. So that's where we are in the process. And back in February, we did touch on this, that in our MOU negotiations, we developed in the classification, we created more vertical structure in collection system workers, and have proposed a senior collection system worker to replace an old concept of a crew lead, which is not a supervisor, but is in a team setting would be the lead worker, and would be based on senior, having qualifications that meet senior collection system worker. We have a crew lead person that will, when that person does retire, that we're going to sunset that position. So we had talked about having 2 of these senior level workers, but since we're proposing to remove a represented position of engineering technician, we wanted to put on the table with our represented employees the opportunity for 2 senior collection system workers in addition to that existing crew lead. So they feel like they're not just giving up something and having no opportunity being created at the same time. So this has been received favorably, I believe, in our discussions with them. And so we're also, as we look to fill these senior collection system worker role positions, we are intending to do an internal recruitment. Whereas for the other positions, it's not strictly internal. I think that's worth noting. So we're just continuing the discussion, not really requesting any approval or other than input and questions. And we'll get to the approval process when we propose next year's budget.
Board, any questions?
Well, you need approval for the assistant associate engineering position. Yeah.
Forgive me. Yes, that I misspoke.
Correct.
That's right. We need that approval. Yeah, it wasn't. I was talking more about that position. Thank you. That's correct.
Right. No, I was getting ready to read a motion, so I was like, I think you need something. Yes.
You need something. Oh, I got off on the track. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. And I'll say a little bit more at the HR committee meeting, we talked a little bit more about how this went down with the union, and Steve sort of made reference to it, but they're getting this sort of not step increases, promotional opportunities within the represented employees. They're getting 2 of those. And so although this is technically a reclassification of an engineering position from represented to unrepresented, it didn't seem, they're happy with what they got, and it was amicable. Mm-hmm. And it makes more sense to everybody, as I gathered, that this engineering position end up being unrepresented. You're muted, Felicia, but I can tell you agree.
Yeah, very well stated. And also Felicia touched on it, but the deputy operations and maintenance manager, and we talked about the HR committee, we've identified a lot of functions that Stephen Mixis is covering. but it's spread pretty thin, and he's doing a great job of keeping things, juggling these things, but could use some support. And because he's also responsible for managing the supervisors and doing all the performance evaluations and everything else. So I won't go into the detail on that at this time, but we just saw, as far as the work that needs to happen, needs to get done, that going the route of a deputy O&M manager made a lot of sense as far as what's on his plate and what he could use support with, such as safety, training, fleet management, and there's a lot of different things.
Mary, did you have a motion?
Sure. I move we reclassify the existing engineering technician position to an assistant/associate engineer position in the fiscal year 2019-20 budget.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Julia, please.
Here we go. Gaffney, you're muted, Tom, so unmute yourself before you vote, please.
Yes.
Yes. Great, thank you. Kelly?
Yes.
Megs?
Yes.
Scylla? Scylla, your vote?
Yes.
Borstein?
Yes.
Unanimous
Yes.
vote, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Item number 9. Consideration of approving and authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of council to approve task order number 5 with Somas Inc. in the total amount of $329,840 for construction management services for the Laurel Grove Sewer Rehabilitation Project, project number 949.
Thank you, President Borstein and board. This item is related to, I touched on some work we're getting underway for this summer in Laurel Grove sewer improvement project or sewer rehabilitation project between Macon Grade and Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. And it is a classic project where construction management is really needed to coordinate with the county. And this one, even though it's just a linear project, it's in an area where there's been recent paving, where there's upcoming paving with Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, and there's a real need for us to coordinate closely. Also, there are potential Native American cultural resources along the alignment that we need to be careful about keeping an eye on and avoiding, or if we come across them, managing appropriately in coordination with the tribe, the Great and Red Korea tribe. So we recommend that Somas is the right choice for the district at this time. They're already working and wrapping up several projects for us and have availability to help us with the same team, which have the contacts in the local area. And so we recommend we go forward with them. Their proposal was reasonable at about 15% of projected construction costs. And Justin, we're keeping him busy, and so he's a lot of credit to him for that, wrapping up those projects like 16, 17 gravity sewer, large diameter work on Shady Lane, and then their team has helped us also with the pump stations. So this we think is a good fit at this time, while and not warranting really going out for RFP at this time. That's something we can look at in the future, but this seems like a good fit, and I recommend going forward with it.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none. Good explanation, Steve. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay, I would move to approve and authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to approve task order number 5 with Somas Inc. in the total amount of $329,840 for construction management services for the Laurel Grove Sewer Rehabilitation Project, which is project 949.
Second?
Right, Mary seconded. Julia?
Okay, Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Meggs,
Yes.
Dilla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes, ma'am.
Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, we've already done number 10. So 11, which is, I think, a drop kick. Review and determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 20-1581, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the global coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19.
Great. I want to thank Andrea for helping us put the staff report together, and Felicia for helping me enumerate all of the different actions we've taken under this emergency. For your reference, I would point to page 2 of the staff report, and the paragraph at the bottom of page 2 talks about the different things we've done, including developing a COVID-19 exposure control plan, which you heard about at our special meeting that we were going to work on. It's on our website right at the top of the homepage. And in what I'm hearing from other collection systems and treatment plants, the CSRMA is recommending they adopt these, and I think we were one of the first to get done. So, and we're implementing it, and it's been working out pretty well. So with that, I encourage you to continue the emergency, and we're happy to answer any questions about how we're navigating with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Do you have an open case right now with FEMA? Did you do that, or I wasn't sure from the last meeting?
That's right. Yes, you've been running lead on that.
Okay.
Yes, we have an application pending, and we are first in line to receive one of their initial reimbursements of up to $100,000. It's actually $130,000, and they say they'll give us 50% of that first. So yeah, we're right out in front of it.
I heard the president say today, I think that isn't there a 25% that we have to pay out of that, or is that just for certain applications?
I didn't hear that, so I can look into it.
Yeah, I think they're going to waive that 25%, but I don't know if it's for sanitary districts. Anyway, thank you.
Or Mixus, did you have anything you wanted to add?
If anyone has anything specific to ask me, I'd be more than happy to answer it, but that sounded great.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move we continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 201581, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the novel coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19.
Second. Anybody?
Second. Doug.
Seconded. And now Julia, please.
Gaffney, Director Gaffney, your vote.
Yoo-hoo.
Oh, Tom.
Tom is.
Tom Gaffney.
Somebody wave to him, maybe.
Yeah, he does.
I think it's his connection.
We'll give him a second.
Okay.
Kelly,
Yes.
Meggs,
Yes.
Dilla,
Yes.
Tom, do you have a vote?
I lost.
There you are. How do you vote on that, Tom?
Oh, bad connection.
How do you vote on that?
Yes, I voted.
Okay.
Yes,
Great.
are you getting that?
Yes.
I vote yes.
There we go.
Okay, Borstein,
Yes.
unanimous vote. Thank you.
I feel like Wheel of Fortune. And Vanna, please take it away. Okay, monthly operations and maintenance metrics report.
Yeah, good. Our metrics were impacted by the COVID-19 emergency, which started last month. And this is, the March 2020 report. So you'll see things like no CCTV due to COVID-19 and repair types. We did some in the early part of the month, but we suspended repairs. And recycled water had been suspended due to operational issues at CMSA that have been corrected, and now we're back up and running when we restarted line maintenance activities. And then we had the one SSO that was construction related but small and didn't reach surface water. And so we moved into more line maintenance then when we started things back up in April, but that doesn't show in this metrics report here. And I'm sure, Mixus, you want to add any other clarifications? Or we can answer.
Absolutely. So we moved very slowly into and incorporating data from CDC, WEF, CWA, Marin County Environmental Health. And I think our transition into bringing the workforce back in has been working extremely well. We are an essential business, but we're doing two of the most essential activities of what we do, and it's pump station maintenance and line maintenance. And the next metrics report will look outstanding, and the guys, everyone's been doing really well. I'm really proud of the supervisors. Thank you to Steve Moore and Felicia. And we're getting there. So I'm very happy where we're going.
It'll be interesting that the metrics in April, we'll probably see some of our highest line maintenance metrics because we've concentrated our workforce in that area. So it's going to be a big increase, but that's because we've taken our forces out of repair and camera work and are making sure that the system's maintained in case we see more wipes and other things that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet.
Exactly, and we're looking at in 2 weeks, we should be caught up with cleaning. We're designing engineering controls for both condition assessment and installing point repairs. So we'll have that back up and running with social distancing and proper PPE. So we're looking forward to how we're working here, operational.
Right, yeah, so that's the evolution. Thank you, Stephen. So, we went back to the basics. We asked ourselves, what's the essential of the essential, as he pointed out? And now, how can we phase in other essential services like repair and condition assessment in a safe manner, not rushing into. So it'll be, watching the metrics and how they change based on how we adapt. It will be interesting, but we're pretty optimistic.
Absolutely.
We're really fortunate no one is fallen ill. Really thankful that we're staying healthy so far. And if in the event that we do have COVID-19 illnesses on our staff, we've identified what are the essential of the essential services that we need to make sure we can do and prove to ourselves we can take care of that part. So we have this resiliency and buffer in our work plan approach, I think.
I agree.
By the way, you can get, if you're, you know how the testing in Marin County has been difficult? Well, it's all opening up all over now. I just wanted to throw that out there. And you do not need symptoms now to get a test. So it's changing rapidly. I just found that out today. So for peace of mind, you can get tested. Thank God for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Coming from, you're in the healthcare background you have, that's appreciated that update.
Well, it makes sense. All essential workers should be able to be tested. That's just crazy. You can't just replace somebody like that. Let's say, when you lose half the crew, I mean, we're up a creek. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll be able to get the essential of the essential done, right? But at a certain point, right, if we don't have anybody, we're in trouble. But we'll work with other districts,
I was wondering if they're going to do an outreach now to kind of share if something happens, but
we're doing it.
We're setting that in motion, right, Stephen?
Absolutely. We have multiple facets of pamphlets going out to Bon Air Center. We have all the signs going up. I'm getting phone calls from various agencies outside of California on how we're doing all this, and I'm very optimistic. But we have due to the staggering of the employees, it's worked out very well for operational and metrics reports and continuing our essential business.
Yeah, the staggering he's talking about is coming in 30 minutes or an hour apart. So during the donning and doffing of equipment, we're staying 6 feet apart and we're complying with social distancing by staggering the hours of the shift when you begin and end your shift. And other agencies are doing that. I read that City of Antioch is doing that too, just today. So that's important. But one thing, Stephen, you're also in contact with other local agencies in the event that we need to help each other out with manpower or with people, with personnel.
Absolutely. In contact with Las Colinas, San Rafael, all other agencies know that we're here to help, but we are going to practice what we have in the exposure control plan. And that's why we took the time to make all the different signs and everything else and public outreach. So we're very confident we can keep our employees protected while keeping the public protected.
Yeah, and in the event, to Director Meg's point, if we're short of staff, we can rely on other agencies to help us out if we need it. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. Yes, we have contingency plans on multiple levels for pump stations, light maintenance, and everything else. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any last minute anything?
I just want to ask about the construction SSO.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to tell Director Kelly about that incident?
Yes. So basically what happened was the individual thought it was an irrigation issue and it was a slow blockage. It was not a full blockage. In our terms, we call it a partial blockage where head pressure builds up and it can force the actual rest of the sewer through. They called 2 months afterwards. What was a several gallon a day spill, we had it calculated as 2 months. So that's why it did increase. We did investigate thoroughly. We did notice that there was a huge patch of green grass coming downstream from the clean out, and we have resolved the issue. So it wasn't 1,046 gallons at once, but it was over the course of 2 months. But we have to rely on what the resident said.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
With the construction debris, there was a bunch of rock in the line. There was roots and behind, but basically the rock we use as the first condition for the blockage, and everything else behind is separate, and that's how the CWICS report is filled out. So it is in the CWICS report that there were roots and rags involved.
Yeah, there was a recent remodel, is that right?
Yes, correct.
What about flushables? were flushables in there?
It's hard to tell, Director Meggs, because of the jetters and they dissolve everything under high pressure. But we do collect a bunch of stuff in the downstream basket at the manhole.
Huh.
That's probably part of the problem. That's what actually creates a seal, that and the roots. So we did contact the contractor. He's fully aware. He's been put on notice, and we'll be following up on him in the future, just in case.
Great.
Well, if there's nothing else, let's adjourn the meeting. And the next meeting is going to be on May something. Hang on.
May 20th.
May 20th. And so we'll see everybody then if we don't meet before that.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and stay healthy and safe out there.
Yeah, nice to see everybody.
Good evening, everyone.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.